The power of breathwork. This is almost that topic of where do I begin? Because for me, breath and breath work absolutely changed my experience and quality of life. At the same time, it's so funny the understanding, the exposure that it has nowadays. It's massively exposed. It's being talked about everywhere. And yet I do find that a lot of the aspects, a lot of the areas of breath work, not only as a healing modality, but a transformational experience, even a recreational experience, in the wellness communities, in spirituality, even in health, they all can be blended. They also can be taken separately, but I just find that the focus is oftentimes on the aspects of breathwork that are almost the least transformational, although they might very well be absolutely powerful in experience, powerful in intensity, let's say. But I'll tell you what I mean. Breath work, first of all, is not some esoteric idea. It's not some occult thing that is either newly being tapped into or being rediscovered from the ancient past and passed down through whatever, fill in the blank. But it is presented as that oftentimes. Breath work is working with the breath. It's extremely simple, and it can be anything from what people think of when they hear the word, which tends to be the intense, rhythmic, the dramatic breathing that gives someone a particular type of experience. But it can also just be conscious breathing. It can be simply having the awareness of breath. This is breath work. This is working with the breath. Now, I don't want to take away from the powerful, the intense, the more dramatic exercises, techniques. They're beautiful. They can give someone a profound experience, and they're much more akin to what I'll touch on a little bit later. They're much more akin to the psychedelic experience. They're much more akin to really shifting us into states that we may not typically be engaged in or experiencing on, let's say, a daily basis. But in my opinion, and I hold this opinion strongly, and in my experience as well, having worked with many, many people, dealing with not only the range of mental health as well as physical ailments, the most powerful breathwork practice I've ever seen is the ability to retrain oneself to have your breath move, to keep your breath moving. The ability to shift what the average person has kind of trained into themselves, habitualized, which tends to be nowadays this constant flux state, this constant moving in and out of the fight or flight, parasympathetic, sympathetic. We're jumping back and forth. And most people have trained the habit of holding their breath. And I mean, we have this kind of subconscious belief that it helps actually with things. When we're shocked, we hold our breath because we feel as if there's this quality to holding the breath in that makes us more aware, makes us more vitally present. If someone tells you to pay attention, one of the first things someone does is they hold their breath. Listen closely. And when you're told to listen closely, when you have to listen closely, what most people do, they hold their breath. And the same thing happens when, someone cuts you off in traffic, or you drop your phone, or you're yelled at, or you're approached by a wild animal even. Like, all of these situations that nowadays, we can be triggered into a fight or flight mode from literally our cell phone falling in a pool nowadays. Your car getting towed, getting a ticket, whatever. All the way up to the much more, let's say deserving, your life actually being threatened, something much more serious. It is these extreme and serious circumstances that fight or flight. And the fact that we pay so little attention to it, we can spend one day and we can come to recognize very quickly that every state of being we're in, any agitated state, any fearful state, any anxious state, comes with it a pattern, a quality, a type of breathing. And you can reverse that. You can actually come at it from the other angle if you directly and purposely or consciously induce a type of breathing. You can then create a type of or a quality of being, a state of being. It is extremely hard to hold on to dramatic anger and anxiety and tension. It's extremely hard to maintain a state of fearful tension, anxious stress, while one is very relaxedly and calmly, naturally breathing. It's hard to maintain those two states side by side. And so you can come at it directly. And then just to touch on, you have these very intense and dramatic breathwork practices. The rebirthings, the holotropic, there's countless names for it. In Sanskrit, you've got the traditional yogic breaths. You've got the Kundalini variations, which can be countless. All of these are techniques of breathing, and they will, for the most part, either deprive you of oxygen, flood you with oxygen, bounce you back and forth between some variation of. But what they're doing is they're giving your body oxygen baths for the most part. They're teaching your body to adapt to new states that can be absolutely helpful, absolutely valuable, but they can also very much so be a distraction. They can very much so be a new drug. Ketamine without the idea of therapy around it. Ketamine without any support, without any level of integration. Ketamine just frivolously handed to anyone could very easily not create the effect or the intended healing or therapeutic benefits that one would want. And yet the power and the absolute transformational effect it can have with just that foundation and that healing purpose and intention present dramatically shifts the outcome. Breath work as well. You can very much use breath to escape. You can become addicted to the intense experience you get from breathing yourself into a state where you've drained your brain of oxygen, or you've flooded your brain of oxygen, or you can breathe yourself into so many different states that you can now become addicted to in the same way you can become addicted to a drug. And they can become escapes very easily, and you can become reliant on it very easily, and you could very easily reach a point where every day, twice a day, for 20 minutes, you have to breathe yourself into absolute disappearance. But as long as one needs to do that, it just means that your life is not becoming yet something that you don't need to escape. It It just means that there is a need for escape. It means there is a need for that twice a day, 20-minute experience, because for some reason the rest of your day isn't vitally being experienced as that quality of life that you really do want. So, in my opinion, the closer we get to living in a meditative way, experiencing our breath at least consciously enough to where we don't need to rely on anything outside or any intense or too intense practice that brings too intense of an experience. That's ultimately what we want. We want to be in this state that's at least fulfilling enough that we don't have a desire to escape it. And so, yeah, the power of breath. Breath can become that tool. It can become that surfboard that you can learn to ride the waves of life, as opposed to remaining a swimmer who has to battle waves the whole time. And as soon as you pick that tool up, as soon as you become interested in your own breath, in that most vital nutrition, the game changes. I mean, when it comes to vitality, when it comes to quality of life, I don't know anything that can have such a permanent and lasting effect, and that also is a tool that's innately and absolutely always with you.